Hello, welcome to Toffee TV. It is the club call, your opportunity to get in touch with us and have a chat about anything. But we are focusing for the first part of the show on Sean Dyche. It is his 1 year anniversary. I'm joined by Patrick Ridge, who takes care of the More Than a Game Substack. He's having a real trouble for all his education, for all his good stories. He can't put a bloody headphone in. So the link is at the top of the Toffee TV Premier thing. You'll see the link there. I can't find the right bit if you want to give us a call. But a year in, Patrick, Sean Dyche rounded it out with a 0-0 draw at Fulham. It wouldn't be any more Sean Dyche if it wasn't a 0-0 draw, was it? But what have you thought of him, since the year, or over the year of him being the Everton manager?
Didn't like it at first, I'll be honest. In the sense of, I think it was needed, and I think he did very well last season. But I had worries that he'd just carry on doing what he'd been doing at Burnley, and I think it stopped working at Burnley.
Yeah.
But in fairness, I think it did brilliantly in the end to manage to keep Everton up. I don't think it particularly worked miracles necessarily.
Yeah.
But he did the job he was asked of, and then in very, very hard circumstances this season, I think it's fair to say he's done a solid, if unspectacular job. And if not for an unprecedented points deduction, Everton would be, safely mid-table. So I think overall, it's just been steady, hasn't it? That's all you can really say.
Yeah, it has. It's been, obviously this season has been, ultimately the problem has been the 10-point deduction. We'd have 28 points if we hadn't had the deduction. Obviously that would nicely have us in mid-table, where I think we are. And I think that does affect how we think of things, how we, people will be panicking right now because we're in the bottom three. He has a very much more even keel about the whole situation when you win and when you lose. And I do think that rubs off on people. I think there's no panic. I think people look at the situation and think, well, of course, we've got a appeal first to see if we get any points back. And if we do, then we'll be in a much healthier position. And I think almost at the moment, it feels like we're in a bit of a holding pattern. We're trying to get what we can out of games rather than, throw everything at them and end up with nothing. I still have reservations about how he rotates a squad and how he uses subs. And again, over the weekend, Onana getting injured and then him saying, well, he was lucky to play the whole of the game. Well, why did he play the whole of the game then? Make that change. Last season, it was he come in as a firefighter and he used what he had, and he didn't have a target man for most of the time. He was at the club till Dom come back, which helped us obviously the likes of Brighton get a result. And now this season he's obviously shaped the team more in his image, and I think it's done all right. There are still things leave me a little bit unsatisfied with, and as I said, mostly the use of the squad and the subs. But I imagine he'd probably say, well, I've got the points on the board. I've done what I was asked to do in the first half of the season, and because something completely out of my control has damaged that situation.
Yeah, I think so. I have two frustrations with him, but I think there is a lot of positives. I think, firstly, if there's an idea of an Everton manager, I don't think he's far away from it.
Yeah,
he's down to earth. He's realistic. He has maybe a bit too much pessimism about him sometimes. But I was brought up on David Moyes. I was brought up on, that kind of football. I think he's limited. I do think he's limited, and it doesn't make him a bad manager. But he's got clear limitations, and we see them in games against Luton at home, where the onus is on you to have the ball, you to do you to go and win the game. And I think when there's those situations, maybe why he struggled to get results at home as well, that's when it comes to roost. I've kind of accepted now. He's unfortunately never gonna. He's one of those managers that I think maybe he feels he's been unfairly put into a box. But at the end of the day, all the evidence is he does fit in that box, and he's very good at he's very good at what he's good at, and he's not good at he'll never be good at what he's not good at now. He's in his 50s. He's a very experienced manager. He's not suddenly going to change. I think but in terms of what realistic choice there would have been to then come and, for one, keep us up, but two, deal with all the chaos that's been around the club, I do think he's done a really good job of just, like you said, keeping everything calm, keeping a lid on it, like taking a step back and just looking at it and thinking, right, these are the facts of the situation, the reality of the situation, as he always says, and this is what we've got to do to try and change it.
Yeah. We have got his stats there so far. If we just have a little look at his stats. 40 games, 13 wins, 10 draws, 17 defeats, goals for 43, goals against 57. Win percentage is 32.5 and his points per game is 1.23. Now, I actually think if you transfer 2 of those defeats into wins, that would be the near perfect record of what you'd be looking for.
Yeah.
I think it's a 1 in 3, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what you look for in a mid-table manager, or even just top half table is a 1 in 3 manager, because that will normally work out.
It's like 47 points.
Yeah, normally, I mean, that'll work out as easy safety in some seasons will be top half of the table, and that's much better than what we've had of late. So it's just a couple of more wins would have made that near perfect. But and as I said, with 28 points. And the size of the squad, I think so far he's done well. It's just that people get very, very nervous because they look at the table and because they see the points right now. And as I said, you have to take it on. You have to take it on what he's actually done rather than what the table says. And the football's not great. We know that. We're not playing amazing football. I do think at times it's better football than I actually thought we would get under Sean Dyche, playing out from the back and actually trying to, break the press.
At times, I mean, we spoke about it throughout the shows today. We don't really see many patterns of playing attack, but we do definitely see more than there was probably under Lampard and Benitez. Yeah. There's definitely been, I think that's what most surprised me. When he came in, I was expecting, what he'll do is have it really organised, really disciplined, and we didn't see that last season, really. And I think he has blind spots for certain players. His blind spot for a certain player didn't help last season in the running until he changed it. But in that defensive aspect, but I think from an attacking aspect, he found a way for a team that hadn't been effective to be effective.
Yeah.
And that's what we've seen this season now. That is very reliant on Abdoulaye Doucouré.
Yeah.
But that's just where we are as a team, and where we are as a squad. So I think as a first year in charge, like you said, it's not far off as good as we could have hoped for.
And it was a team that didn't have Abdoulaye Doucouré in, of course, before he came into it. So we actually switched it so that rather than playing, say, 5 at the back and looking for, clean sheets that way, that we were going to get clean sheets by winning the ball in midfield and breaking higher up the pitch. And with Doucouré, suddenly he was someone who could play between the lines, take advantage of that space. And we know how good he is, and it is testament to how good he's been in goal, that how much we miss him.
I think, and I mentioned my worries about him because, like I said, I've never truly rated Dyche as this kind of manager who's just misunderstood or anything like that. I thought he's very good at what he's good at. And I think his time at Burnley had gone stale, and that happens. He'd been there a long time, and he didn't really have the squad for it and everything like that. But also his ideas weren't working. Yeah. And I was worried he was just going to come in and try the same thing again. And I think at times when he hasn't had Doucouré, he's reverted back to that. Yeah. I think at times without Doucouré, Everton have resembled that Burnley of the latter days of Dyche, and it's been bad to watch. But not just bad to watch, but the results have been bad as well. But with Doucouré, it's like that player he never had at Burnley. That one who joins the midfield and attack and has that athleticism to get around. And when we've been at our best, like that Brighton game last season, the Bournemouth game at home, the Newcastle game, there's been some really, really good results. And then like the ones Brentford, Villa away this season, we have performed really well at times. And like you said, 28 points this season that they've earned. You can't sniff your nose up at that. We'd be all confident of being able to be safe by April, wouldn't we? At the very latest, if not for the deduction. So. Yeah, I'm glad he's shown some kind of development as a manager. But maybe, I suppose, in dream scenario, it'd have been if he was going to come in, I'd have liked to have seen a bit more development of the side that he's not good at, in the sense of when it is about having possession, what can we do with it? How can we create those chances? And it's not just against Luton on Saturday, just going long and not really having any. Yeah,
I think when he's deprived of the players he needs, then we do look so limited. And obviously Doucouré is one of them. But we got Astroned. This is going to be dead interesting watching Patrick try and put this headphone in.
I'm going to hold it in.
Go on. Astro. Nick, are you there, mate?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you, yeah. No frogs in the bayou, just you.
Yeah, we'll see how this works. We'll see how this works.
Go on.
This works. The frogs are unpredictable. How are you?
Well, we're all right. We're okay. You know, we're trucking along.
Quiet deadline day. At least we knew this deadline day was going to be dead quiet.
To be honest, mate, we're going to use the quiet transfer deadline day to try and convince Baz that America really did go to the moon in '69. I think that's the real.
Well, listen,
that's the real one for the day.
You know what, right? Like one of these days, I am actually going to show up there and I am going to absolutely I'm going to pester him with facts and figures and perspectives. And I'm not walking out of that studio until Baz believes that Apollo 11 landed on the moon in July of 1969. Because listen, conspiracy theories are a whole lot of fun. I actually think conspiracy theorists are more fun than the theories they come up with. But that's one that's not up for debate.
Yeah, fair play.
Yeah, that's not one up for debate. But I'll tell you what else is not up for debate. The fact that Everton is never going to get a penalty ever again.
Ever again.
Ever again. No, there's never going to be a penalty awarded to Everton ever again, and you can take that to the bank. Instead of a Sean promise, that's an Astro promise. You know. So yeah, mate, I'm honestly like I got so angry yesterday about a cacophony of things that Everton was just the nasty sour cherry on top of a poop Sunday that was my Tuesday, and I actually walked out of the house and went and walked like 3 miles yesterday. Me and Astro Jr. went for a long walk and we were debating the pure illegality of the way the Premier League operates. And how, like, you know, if you, honest to goodness, sat a donkey down and told him, like, verse, chorus, and verse, everything that's happened regarding Everton and the Premier League and PNS and little Dickie Masters, that donkey would kick you in the head. It's so absurd. Like, it is, honest to goodness, I don't know. I don't know what I'm more angry about. The fact that Everton couldn't find their ass with both hands in the dark, and the juvenile way in which we went about defending ourselves, or the fact that the Premier League is just so like morally bankrupt and corrupt an organization. Like it's not even up for debate anymore. It's literally on display every day of the week. And you got little Dickie. Little Dickie's playing out old Cheeto Tits playbook. You know, he's going to attack us in the press. You know, when he's just being put to task for, you know, trying to say that Nottingham Forest and Everton Football Club are small. Well, I'm sorry, little Dickie. I don't know what your metric is for small, but that ain't how this it's not how this works. You don't get to decide that. And I don't know. And the fact that Chelsea and Manchester City never, ever are going to be brought to heel to answer for their financial misgivings. And the fact that the seditious Shithouse Six have still not paid their money that they were, you know, burdened for what, you know, for them trying to outkick their coverage and go to that little tin pot European Super League. The only reason that we're getting picked on is because they think they can get away with it. Yep. And like early on in this, I said, you mess with the wrong fan base. But actually, I'm kind of afraid that they picked us because they thought we'd be a soft touch and an easy target, because I am wore out. I am tired. I am literally just flagging. Like, I dreaded the match yesterday.
Yeah.
I dreaded the match yesterday. Hell, my truck dreaded the match. Did you hear that?
I did hear your truck, Dan. I was worried. It's like that. Like
I said Everton, and my truck said no. It's like Danger Will Robinson.
Do you drive Optimus Prime?
I don't actually drive Optimus Prime, but
shame.
I would drive Optimus Prime if given the chance.
Of course, who wouldn't?
Yes, of course I would. But no, mate, I don't know. I don't know how y'all do it. I don't know how you guys do it. But especially on a transfer deadline day. I did catch a bit of the Daily Live Extra this morning, and it was interesting to hear. I think it was Patrick who was on there with Baz. Yeah. Yeah, he was interesting to hear him say that there are knock-on effects to all these shenanigans that the Premier League is playing with right now, because everybody is terrified to spend money. I mean, literally, when you make the rules up as you go and nobody knows what your intent is, and they're not sure whether you just might decide to, I don't know, hey, this worked last year, but you know what? For no arbitrary reason, you can't claim that anymore.
Yeah.
And you had no idea the goalposts were going to move or the metric is going to change. Listen, my little brother, when he was little, you couldn't play Candyland with him. You want to know why? Because he'd change the rules. And he would just do whatever he wanted. He'd spin it. He didn't get what he wanted. He'd spin it again, right? It was called Dimitri Wins, okay? There was nothing you could do about it. Don't call it Candyland. Call it Dimitri Wins. Are we playing that with the Premier League? It ain't the Premier League. It's just what little Dickie Masters wants.
Yeah.
Or whatever the top 6 want. Because let's face it, it's a closed shop. And anybody that calls it anything other than that is deluding themselves in their high as the ball's on a tall dog. And I want some of what they're smoking. Because I need something to take the edge off of the pain and the struggle that is being an Evertonian right now.
Nick, can I ask you one question?
You can ask me a bunch of questions.
What the hell is
I'm
Candyland? Because the only Candyland I know was in Django Unchained, and I don't want to play that game. So can you explain to us?
No, man. No, it's not. It's not. You know what? Like, we got Chutes and Ladders over here, and y'all have like snakes and something.
Snakes and Ladders.
It's a board game.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we had Chutes and Ladders and Snakes and Ladders. Candyland is just a little bit sweeter version of that, where you get to be like a little gingerbread man running through the board. Candyland is.
No, we haven't got it.
We haven't got it.
We haven't got it. It's not out. You know.
Well, listen.
It's not. I'm not being funny, but it's not like America to have something for kids to play. It needs to have something to do with like candy treats, is there? Let's be honest.
Listen, when you're a country that thrives on guns, bad ideas, and morbid obesity, I don't know what you. I mean, listen, Candyland seems like it would be wildly appropriate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That seems to be very on brand for America. All you gotta do is just add a little bit of.
I was going to say, the only thing I can think of, the only thing I can think of, which is what's actually making it feel really good, is, you know, Katy Perry's video for, you know, the one where she's like walking through a literal Candyland. That's fine. I'm on board with that all day. California Girls.
I've actually never seen that.
That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me. But go on YouTube and just Google California Girls, Katy Perry. Watch the video and tell me if that's Candyland. If it's not Candyland, you haven't wasted 3 minutes of your life. I'm telling you that right now.
Okay. Again, I don't know why that's going off. It must not like Katy Perry either. So sorry. But yeah. No, mate. No, listen, I ultimately, like, I don't know. I know you said earlier we're in a holding pattern. I agree, but like I'm very concerned by the lack of engagement from the club. Like, why have we not learned the lesson? Yeah,
I do feel like they're in a tough position at the minute, Astro. That's the issue. Like, I feel like they're very scared of saying anything that the appeals commission might come back, you know, they might be seen or reported by the media to have skewed things. So I'm frustrated too, but I think that's maybe where they're coming from, that they're trying to play everything safe now. I think we'd all like, wouldn't we, Ped, that they actually come out and defend themselves and be a bit more bullish.
They're not going to do that. The simple fact is they haven't got anyone to do that. There's no one at the club to do that, sadly. There's no one to make that decision. They're rudderless. There's no board. There's no CEO. There's no chairman. There's no owner. They're waiting for the new owners. There's obviously 150 media staff, but that's by the by. But there's no one to make those decisions. There's no one to come out and say. There's no one to even appoint anyone. There's no one even to. There's briefing, of course. There's people telling us all the facts and figures about what should be put out there. But people want to hear it from the football club. They really do. You're absolutely right, Nick. People want to hear that the football club have got some elements of control over this situation. And maybe once this is actually finished, the commission's actually finished, and over the next few days, Everton might start to say things. But again, I feel this is where I actually think, as we're talking about Sean Dyche, this is actually where I think he's. You know, we can talk about like Frank Lampard as in like a manager or in control of the situation. This is where I think Dyche is actually better because he is in control of the situation. This situation actually suits Dyche a lot more than it would have a Frank Lampard, or certainly someone like Benitez, who obviously wasn't a favourite and people would have took it out on him. Someone like Dyche can bat all this off and can talk with a calmness. You know, I watch every press conference. looking at him, waiting for him to react, but he doesn't react. And I actually think when we talk about
sometimes you want him to as
you
well.
do, but sometimes when we talk about him, when he talks about things like paying you back, he loves talking about XG paying you back. I actually think the fact that he is calm does pay him back, because then we don't go back to the ranting and raving of, like, say, Arteta at Newcastle, where people go, this is a terrible situation and it's been made worse by an out-of-control manager and he needs to be calm for his club. I think Dyche is calm, but what we need is actually a spokesman coming out and saying it like it is, or someone who doesn't actually work for the club but is empowered by the club, like an ex-player, to come out and speak, get on a podcast, offer himself up to all these major podcasts. I'm not being funny, right? If Gary Neville got a phone call off, like, someone who was an ex-player and said, I'm going to come on and I'm going to say some things that are going to go viral and you're going to love this, they'd invite him on. If they could do an Everton special, they would do an Everton special. But having Jamie Carragher as your spokesperson, or having Frank Lampard who stands up and says the things, that for us as a fan base just makes I mean, Frank Lampard said some very interesting things on that podcast, but to me it was like, I looked at it and just went, it's
nothing really
it's
new,
not,
is it?
but it's also nothing that's you're going to go, well, he's having a go at, like, the board because they sacked him. Or, not that I think people, but it's, you know. Still there, Nick? He's gone. Is he gone? No, he's still here. Still there, Nick? His mic's on mute. You can unmic yourself, Nick, if you want. Maybe his truck's taken over.
Oh, dear.
Maybe his truck has taken over. So, hello, Nick. Bob the Blue. I mean, again, I don't understand this. You're being... many people would call this sexist in the modern age, but you said Ped, the Barbie fan, loves California girls. What a surprise. I do, mate. Number one, the Barbie film is very, very good. And number two, Katy Perry, I've been to see her multiple times. I've been to see her 4 times in concert. Because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
I'm not bothered about music, but I'll give her a good look.
I'm going to see... sorry if this offends you, but I'm going to see Taylor Swift this year.
Same.
And also, I'm going to see Girls Aloud. Oh, does that hurt your sensibilities? Oh, sorry. Grow up.
Going to Anfield to see
Taylor? I'm actually going to Anfield to see Taylor Swift.
I'm doing it properly. Yeah, I wouldn't... Not trading in my big blue badge.
I'm actually going to go to Anfield for something nice. I'm going to see Taylor Swift. And you know what? All these people are like, you want to see Taylor Swift? You wait till Taylor Swift mania runs wild on you, honestly, with its 24-inch pythons. I'm telling you. Have we lost Nick?
Nick's gone.
He's gone. Nick's gone. You can take your earpiece out. Yeah. You look like you're doing Band-Aid or something.
He kept popping out anyway.
Oh.
Be right.
You need to know how to work it.
I know this is the next step.
Imagine not wanting to go and see Katy Perry. What kind of world do we live in that we crazy. Crazy. Bob the Blue, I think you should go and watch the video for California Girls and then come back and we'll have a conversation, shall we? We'll have a conversation. Who's on now? Degsy is right. Let's get Degs. Right, get the hook.
Yeah.
And just hook it over your ear.
Like this.
Right? And then pop it in your ear. Degsy, what's going on, my friend?
So tell the young man there that I'm 64 and I know how to put it in.
Exactly, Degsy.
I know it's pathetic.
I might sound like a frog, but at least I can hear me.
No, you don't sound. What you're forgetting is, Degs, is that Patrick comes from Yorkshire. And they're not
there you go.
They haven't got that technology yet in Yorkshire.
I've got to own up. I'm half Yorkshire.
Yeah, but the good halfie is not from Yorkshire, though. That's what you got to remember.
Yeah,
where he comes from, people are still shouting at clouds when it rains.
Where about in Yorkshire you from, mate?
We just got out of the pit. So.
Go on. Which part of Yorkshire?
Wakefield.
Wakefield.
Well, Barnsley were, the Trin.
The Trinity, my dad played against the Trinity when rugby league was rugby league. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, my granddad was chairman in in Trinity's heyday in the water splash final, if you can remember that. That's all that. So proper Yorkshire heritage.
There you go.
Proper Yorkshire heritage. Yeah, my mum was from Hull.
Ah, see.
Is that Yorkshire?
Well, the East Riding off.
Yeah. Fair play.
The East Riding,
They are the Texas of the UK.
Do
massive.
Did you know
Middlesbrough's Yorkshire.
Middlesbrough still claim.
Yeah.
Hull is the most sporting town in the UK.
Go on, give us more context to that.
Well, professional football team, 2 professional rugby league teams.
True.
Speedway, dog tracks.
I'm not having Speedway.
Did you just say Speedway and dog traps?
Dog tracks.
Dog tracks, sorry. Yeah, but that's what I meant, because that's me being stupid.
The Speedway, I used to go there as a kid, and you get all dressed up as you did, to go out for the evening when you're a kid. And your granddad would be taking you to Speedway, and you come home grey.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Degs, right? If you're claiming Speedway as a sport, then I'm claiming joyriding as a sport. I'll be honest.
Well, that's what Speedway is, isn't it?
Well, I think Speedway is more of a sport than dog racing.
Yeah, dog racing.
Are the dogs the athletes?
Dog racing is completely rigged. Completely.
Well, you can't. Yorkshire women can't help being ugly, mate.
Whoa!
Wow.
Oh my God!
Well, everybody else is talking about women. Why can't I?
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about the good things. I'm talking about good things. Go on, Degsy. What? Before you get us kicked off YouTube, go on.
I don't know why I called in the first place. No, I honestly think the club. Yes, they're always quiet. They're useless, aren't they? But they daren't say anything this week.
Yeah.
No,
you can't, can you? I mean, we're told one thing that did the hearing start today, or does it start tomorrow?
No, today through Friday.
Yeah,
it's right. So
we've actually already.
Did you say I wasn't sure if you said the hearing or the healing.
The healing starts. The healing starts in 2 weeks, hopefully.
Well, they might do.
Yeah, it might do.
Can't
we've already got 4 points back.
Now,
it's going to be 4 points. 4 points today, 4 points tomorrow, and finish it off with 2 on Friday.
That'll do. That'd be lovely, wouldn't it?
That'd be good, wouldn't it?
We'll give them 3 back just because we're.
Do you know I can see us beating Spurs?
Yeah,
I honestly can. Yeah, I don't know why, because we're not. But there we go. Anyway, now the game last night, the penalty. Now I saw a different still than everybody else saw. I saw the still the VAR got.
Oh yeah.
And you know the arm by the side picture. Well, in VAR, he has like a web.
Oh yeah.
You're like what? Like a web. Like a
web of
an invisible web.
Yeah,
it's an invisible web, but that attaches him to the body.
Okay.
Even when his arm's at his shoulders.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's basically got his arm out, but because he's got this invisible web, he's attached and he's part of the body. I think that's what it was.
Like a puppet on a string, almost. Like you're saying that.
Well, wouldn't you like him as our left back though?
Well, yeah, he played. I mean, Mikolenko's been. I think
we make some mistakes.
Yeah,
we make some mistakes.
Yeah,
Mikolenko's been brilliant this season, but I think Robinson.
No, we put the time into him.
Yeah, exactly.
If we put the time into,
was the natural success.
If we put the same sort of time we've put into Nathan Patterson, then
and Small,
then he would have been for what we sold him for. It's nonsense. But
who advises these kids at Everton? Small. Oh, go to Southampton. You'll get to play every game. Did he ever play in the first game?
I do think
he was on the bench.
Yeah, I do think the issue during Marcel Brand's time, especially as well, there has been some talk that the young players maybe just didn't see as a pathway as such, and Brand's maybe wasn't as maybe. I think maybe Brand's approach was a bit more abrasiveness, like a bit more standoffish, maybe not as anyway. But I'm not that he didn't want to bring young players in. I mean, Brand's had Tino Livramento ready and waiting, and Rafa Benitez said no, didn't he? His parents were there ready to sign the contracts, and Benitez turned it down.
I think what you had, Degs, is, to be honest, you had maybe four or five different voices when there should have only been one, which should have been the director of football. You had the 2 owners,
the managers.
You had the manager. You had the director of football. You had Kia Joraban.
The tea lady.
When you say, the tea lady. Yeah, well, she's probably I met her on the stadium tour, one of the tea ladies, and she knows more about the club than anybody.
But that's what you had. So you had all these different people piping up with different opinions.
Do you remember the kit man who's just retired?
Yeah.
Why was he never manager?
Probably because he was the kit man, I'd imagine.
Yeah, he knew more about the players and their little foibles.
No, I know, but
that's what you need to know about your players, isn't it?
But that's the thing, though. The thing about it is, though, players either didn't sign or left because they weren't getting clear instruction of where their career was going to go. Thierry Small, we can all point fingers and laugh at him, go, you never made it. But if he was very certain that he was never going to make it at Everton because the path was blocked or he wasn't getting a loan when he should have done, he did what he thought was the best for his career. And sometimes, you know, it doesn't work out. Sometimes you get a bad vice, sometimes you get a bad injury, sometimes that stops you, you know.
It's not like he chased the money necessarily, is he? He went to Southampton.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he probably, and it hasn't worked out.
I think he was promised he was going to get first team football, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I think there is probably, from putting the shoe on the other foot, there's too much expectation from certain young players sometimes to have it all handed to them, to have it all served up to them on a plate, and maybe there was a bit of that expectation. But at the same time, you know, it's not the only one we've seen. There's a player called Mohamed Ali Cho who went and who didn't see a pathway, and he went to France and he was brilliant, and then he went to he went to a big team in Germany. I think he just moved again.
Yeah.
But he kind of had a flying start in the second tier in France, and then a bit in the top division as well. And, like, you know, he's still a young player, but he's got a lot of talent, and he just didn't see the pathway. I mean, that happens at a lot of clubs as well.
He was asked about it, wasn't he? He was asked about it on a podcast, and he said to him about Everton and why he didn't stay there, and he just started laughing. He just literally just started laughing. He was just like, because there's nowhere to go. Yeah. You get into the under 21s basically, and that's it. Yeah. There's no pathway.
And that, as the irony is, it's improved in the last few.
Yeah, it has improved, and now but we have no players, Degs. Yeah. We have no players that are ready to take the step up.
No,
because of that time, it's all coming back now. Like, people will go, it's terrible. What we're seeing now, having no players in the first team, is the knock-on effect from 3 or 4 years ago. Really?
Yeah, when we had 26-year-olds playing in the under 21.
It is. It's that knock-on effect now of, like, not having a generation of players who are ready to step in. Obviously, Dobbin's there, and we've got a couple who were on loan who've come back who are injured. But most of those players have gone, and obviously we sold Tom Cannon and we sold the kid to Chelsea as well. But most of them we've lost most of them, so it's a sad state of affairs. But what are your thoughts? Obviously, it's a year of Dyche. What are your general thoughts on Sean Dyche as the manager?
I just think, and to put it simple, he's the right man at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And you know, we're never gonna win multiple trophies with him. But I feel safe under him.
Yeah.
Is you know, we all sit in the stands, don't we? And we say, oh, you need to bring a sub on. You need to do that. Where do these subs come from? He had 2 goalkeepers yesterday.
Yeah, I don't think that should be allowed, personally.
No, I don't.
No, honestly, I honestly don't think it should be allowed.
Then just take a kid to blood him, not to play, but to be around the squad and see what it's like to go away.
Yeah.
You know, why take 2 goalkeepers when we know that, you know, João Virginia is our number 2 now, isn't he?
Yeah.
And to be honest, Pickford's, if he's not the best goalkeeper in Britain at the moment, then there's something wrong. Some of them say
I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far.
Well, I don't know. I think I feel safe with him. I do. It's been a long time since I've felt, you know, that, okay, the defenders are making a wickets, but we've got Pickford behind them. You know what I mean? And João Virginia in those cup games, I mean, he came, he collected, he ruled the 6-yard box, which is what a goalkeeper's supposed to do. He's a big lad. He came, you know, and he catches balls, which is quite extraordinary these days, isn't it? You know, to see a goalkeeper catching. Yeah, well, it's quite extraordinary, isn't it? It is. Goalkeepers get coached to punch the ball away. Well, if you don't catch the ball right with your palm, you knock it back into play. But if you've got a goalkeeper who's coming to try and curl his body around the ball and hold on to it, that's by far the better way of doing things, isn't it? Anyway, why did I call? Anyway, okay. Who honestly thinks that we're going to get more than half of our points back?
I'll be honest with you, Degs. I haven't got a clue. Honestly, I haven't got a clue.
We're not going to get 10 because everybody's honest enough to know that we broke the rules. Do you know what I mean? But if we get like 4 points or say 6 points back, then surely Forest has got to get the equivalent.
I think what the huge importance with this appeal, Degs, is that whatever happens, it sets a precedent. You know, if the worst happens and Everton don't get any points back, then it sets a massive. It then sets the precedent for the next case. So Everton at least will have the argument of being able to say for the next case, you shouldn't be punishing us twice for the same breach. But Forest could be in for. You know, I did some basic sums just using what's publicly available for Forest, and they could be upwards of 30 million over. That's the suggestion.
It does seem like they're not contesting it, are they? Really?
No. And it's
Everybody's just sat back waiting for us.
So it's all about. I mean, I can't say I'm confident, but I'd like to think that we might get half the points back. In which case, it maybe sets a precedent for the next ones as well. But wouldn't it be nice if the Super Silk did manage to get it knocked out? The issue is Everton admitted guilt, didn't they, in the first hearing? They did admit guilt, and this is a big sticking point. So I can't see how they're going to get it messily overturned.
But
they'd have to argue the process.
Guilt? Didn't they admit guilt, but by saying we were actually following the Premiership and what they said could do?
Yeah, they admitted guilt, but they disputed how much they were guilty. So it's essentially saying, let's say that the Premier League said that we're 19.5 million over. Everton claimed that, okay, we're guilty, but we don't agree that we're 19.5 million over. So it's like disputing with the police how far you are over a speed limit. If the speed camera isn't reliable or something like that. It's hard, and then it's how do you argue that down? I don't know. Well, we'll have to see, but maybe they're just going to focus on the mitigating factors, and that they don't feel that the original commission took them into consideration enough. We're going to have to, what we've all got to look forward to in the middle of February. Whatever happens is another 40-page document. Yeah. Then we'll just have one paragraph in at the end, and we can only hope that we get through it. And it says, and Everton have been awarded. We feel that Everton have been awarded 6 points back or whatever, or whatever the judgment is. And
it's all right. We'll know the night before.
Yeah. We'll just
see what David Ornstein has to say.
If we get 4 points back and the other charge dropped, then I think that's.
I think it'd be a huge result. Yeah,
that would be a hell of a result. And without being.
But in one fell swoop, having the Premiership ruined a transfer window.
Yeah, we've been speaking about this quite a lot, haven't we, on the channel? About
everybody knows the football clubs, apart from the big 3 or 4. Don't make money. So most football clubs are on that limit, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they push it.
Yeah,
by doing these elongated deals and things, and that's supposedly going to be all outlawed next year, isn't it?
Well, it's outlawed now. You can give people 8-year contracts all you want, but you can only 5 years is taken into
amortization.
Into amortization.
Yeah.
And I think
do you think why Chelsea are signing these players on such long contracts?
Well, it's why they did. It's why they did initially, but then UEFA changed the rules, and the Premier League either are following suit or have followed suit, but it isn't yet implemented. So they're still giving, Chelsea will. I don't think Chelsea will be giving any more 8-year contracts out. They might give 6-year contracts out. But I mean, fair play to Big Ted but Todd Bowley went in and he saw what he thought was a loophole in the system, and in fact he found a loophole in the system. He came in from a thing of well, there's no rule that says you do it over a longer contract.
Yeah.
So if it helps us, I'm going to use it. And look, it's sneaky, but it's almost like, why didn't we think of this? That's why you're annoyed, because if you're actually going to be crafty and do it, and Everton have. I think you're going back to your original point, Degs. You said that you feel like the Premier League have picked on Everton, but I think that Everton were just the right size of club to try it out with. In terms of we are a big club. We've seen that, all the evidence of it in terms of the media attention to the cases and the relegation battles. But also they did feel they could get away with it without the media uproar that had come with one of the top 6 sides.
Yeah, we're big enough for it to make headlines, but we're not big enough for anyone to actually care.
Exactly. That's essentially
exactly. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. But
which is the same with the relegation battles and the VAR and everything like that. That's always the same.
So how do you both feel then? Because obviously this guy has proved just nonsensical. How do you feel about the government actually setting up a watchdog then?
No, I think it needs to happen, and I think we need to get away from the idea of it being like using words like the government. I think it is a watchdog. But it's an independent, isn't it?
Independent watchdog. That's
once it's set up. Once it's set up, football is one of the biggest. One of these biggest industries in this country. Okay, it's not the biggest industry,
money into the country.
But in terms of like prestige added to money, it probably is the biggest one. I know it's financial services, as John has told me, is the biggest one for actual money. But in terms of like portraying the country across the world, it's a huge advertisement for this country. People flock into this country to come and watch football teams. When
people flock in to come and play.
People look at the way the Premier League is packaged is the way that people think London looks in Love Actually. Do you know what I mean? They forget about all the other stuff that goes on south of the river or whatever. They just focus on Keira Knightley and people holding up signs to it.
Nice bridge.
So
nice
it's
bridge
exactly. So they love it. They love it, and it's a huge thing. And if it's been pulled through the mud, the governments look at that and say, well, we know this. You wouldn't have to. I know it does sort of, but you wouldn't have the financial services running itself. You need outside people to look over it and say, no, this needs this or that. And once it comes in, then it is fully independent. And obviously then you shouldn't, because the fact that the guy who runs the Premier League has to go and sit and answer questions at a Commons committee thing. It's like that's bad. That's bad.
I sat and watched that, and you guys probably did as well. And you know what? None of those MPs from all the parties had anything really to do with Everton. And some of the questions they asked were what the fans wanted to ask, weren't they? They were always these were the questions that we've been asking all the time, and they were asking for us the same questions. And I thought they did an incredible job. As did the leader of the Championship and the EFL. Where he differed in his opinions, and he actually said, well, no, that doesn't make sense to us. We do it this way and whatever. And it just made that guy that's head of the Premier League, or the whatever he is it just made him into some sort of Looney Tunes character, didn't it?
I mean, the fact that Rick Parry, who's been a bit of a unmitigated disaster at the EFL, came out smelling of roses, really, compared to Masters, says enough.
Well, he did, didn't he?
I think you mentioned it, Ped. Like, I suppose the one frustration that I had, because, the MPs aren't necessarily football specialists, and it's like they did in the letter, at least in regards to the Everton case, ask the questions that we really wanted to ask. But would it be nice if they'd have asked that at the time?
Yeah, I mean,
it's almost like they were doing very surface level stuff.
Well, what they were doing is they were doing like, a
lot of subjects.
They were asking questions that people had told them to ask. But the problem with what you find for anyone who's got any insight into anything is, if you ask them a question and they give you a reply, it's always the secondary question, because that's when people, the depth of how much knowledge, and that's where I was a little bit, and that's not the MP's fault. On that day, someone's asked to comment there, well, why wasn't Andy Burnham there? Well, Andy Burnham's not an MP for a start. I mean, Andy Burnham is a Metro mayor and has actually probably got more power than most MPs in this country.
But he can't go and sit on that.
But he can't sit on that because he's not an MP, and
he's not an MP.
Ian Bain would have been a good one. Ian Bain would have been a really good one to have there.
There could have been no there could have been nobody saying, oh, well, there's a conflict of interest here, because Ian Byrne might be an MP in the Liverpool area, but also he's a staunch Red. It's like he's not he's not coming from an Everton perspective. And he's very knowledgeable about football, clearly, as well.
One of the MPs was very knowledgeable. Was a Reading fan, and his club are being dragged through the mud now.
He was the one who asked the question that actually led to the slip up from Masters calling Everton and Forest small clubs. It was him. It
was. He framed that really, really well. And he called some else on that. So it's going to be very interesting few weeks, Degs.
To call anybody, any club, not just Everton or whatever, any club that's in the Premier League, to call them a small club.
Yeah, it's
just stupid, isn't it? Because these are the best 20 clubs in Britain.
Yeah,
well, I think what we've got to, is easy to forget. I know John says it a lot. Is at the end of the day, the Premier League is the 20 clubs that are shareholders. Richard Masters was appointed as CEO of the executive board, which is it's 5 people, but 3 of them are non-exec, so it's essentially him and the chair, Alison Britton, who run it. Like, they are working for the clubs. Like, and this is where I don't have any sympathy for him. He earns a lot of money. He is, I think he's going about it in the wrong way, but when he's going up to these committee hearings and he's representing the Premier League, he's representing what the clubs want in most circumstances. It's where this kind of twisted implementation of the rules has come in that he's facing scrutiny.
Well, going back to what we said before about Everton speaking out or having some, that's actually one thing that I would have loved to have seen is Everton come out and written to Richard Masters and asked them for an explanation, a joint statement with them and Nottingham Forest, asking why they were called small clubs, or what makes a small club in the eyes of the chief executive of the Premier League.
There could be no, like, again, Everton wouldn't have done anything wrong there because Richard Masters said that in a public
He said it. He said it.
Yes, they're put in a public forum, yes.
You know, give us an explanation of what makes a small club. Not saying we're not a small club, how dare you. Ask the question, what makes a small club in the Premier League? How do you define what a big club is? What defines a big club?
Leave it at that, but make him squirm.
Yeah, that's it. Make him give an explanation, because that would have been very interesting.
I'm sure it'll be done behind closed doors.
Do it publicly.
They should do it publicly.
Yeah, do it nice and public.
Well, I hopefully I can actually read forms now. Do you think?
Maybe.
You know, these so-called clever lawyers that we've got, where the claim is that we put a figure in a box that shouldn't have gone in a box.
Yeah.
Isn't it? We declared something
that
they're now saying that, okay, we filled it in the box because we thought that's what should happen. And now they're saying, well, we found out through discussions that figure shouldn't have been declared in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the cynic in me would say that Everton just trying to plead their innocence through ignorance. Yeah, we are.
We're just from top to bottom. We're shit at admin.
Yeah.
You know, I go from Southport Supporters Club, and we've got a couple of lads. We've got one lad who's in a wheelchair. There's me who has difficulty, you know, to and from the ground. Without the coach, I'd probably struggle. But the lad in the wheelchair, he has a carer ticket as well. You know, he's season ticket holder, and he's a brilliant lad, Bob. And he never whinges. He just cracks on, you know. But the amount of time that his season ticket doesn't work.
Yeah.
And instead of the stewards, because he goes in that gate week in, week out, and instead of the stewards saying to him, okay, Bob, give us your season ticket. We'll go and fix it, but go and get to your seat, mate. We'll bring your season ticket back to you. No, they send him from the park end in the little corner there, because he goes in that new section up back in front of the main stand. That, by the way, is shit. I've tried it. Oh, it's freezing, and you get a little school chair to sit on if you're not in a thing. There's no proper seats there. Yeah. You get a little plastic chair to sit in, and you're freezing. But instead of the steward saying to him, "Give us your season ticket, Bob. Go and find your spec. Here's a cup of tea. We'll bring your season ticket back fixed." They send him to Goodison Park ticket office to have it fixed, and then he's got to wheel himself through that crowd.
Yeah.
That we all know people turn up a lot later than they used to.
Yeah.
And he's got to wheel himself back in, see the same bloke that sent him, and go in.
Yeah.
Now, is that, to me, that's disgusting, isn't it?
Stuff like that, yeah. Stuff like that winds people up, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I remember telling you about the day I went to the Sheffield United game, and my care home bought me the ticket because it was my birthday, and they bought a ticket that said easy access. So they thought, not going to football, they thought it was meant for someone like me. But it was a home ticket.
Yeah.
I got there, and the steward said, "Oh, lad, you can't sit in here. It's home supporters. But don't worry, we'll take you round to the away supporters, and we'll sit you in a seat."
Okay.
And they took me to the front of the away supporters in the Sheffield United ground. Okay. And they asked one of the ambulance guys, could I have his seat? And I sat with all in the kind of smashing seat. But they went all to the trouble of looking after somebody that wasn't even one of their supporters.
Yeah.
And we send our own supporters in wheelchairs to go and fix his own season ticket.
Yeah.
And from top to bottom, do you know what I mean? The guys try their best in the ticket office if you've got a problem. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the Auto Cup scheme always seems, I'm quite lucky, it seems to work for me and that sort of stuff. But the amount of people that say, well, I missed my ticket, my payment didn't go through, but nobody contacted him to say, listen, have you got an alternative way of paying? You know, which happens these days, doesn't it? Because people are delivering week to week, a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, and so they just sell his seat off.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So please, Everton.
Yeah.
I know nobody's probably listening for Everton, but there we go. Please,
they're
Everton.
all listening. They're all listening,
yeah,
Dex. Don't you worry.
Yeah, Mr. Treble 7. Fix our admin. Let's start running Everton Football Club as a professional outfit. And make it something else to be proud of. We're proud of our history. We're proud of this and we're proud of that.
Yeah.
But by God Almighty, we don't know how to run a football club.
No, it'll all change soon, Degs, because we won't have one.
Do you think so?
Anyway, there you go. Degs, nice
no,
one.
Don't say that to me, because my world would finish, mate.
We'll be fine.
We'll be all
do you know what I mean? I don't know what I'd do
We'll be
without them, because
all
it's my escape into the real world. You know what
Jesus
I mean?
Christ, I escaped
There we
into
go.
the real world to get away from them, Degs. But, Degs, nice one for
Yeah.
giving us a call, mate.
All right, well, thank you
Cheers.
very much, guys. Thank
Nice
you.
one.
Best
Speak to you
of luck.
later.
Great
Ta-ra,
program.
mate.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate.
See ya.
Cheers. There you go. Bit of can't beat a bit of Degsy on a Wednesday. You can't beat a bit of Degsy. What else is going on? Let's have a look at some of the comments. Emma says, just on the spokesman situation, it was even left to the fans to write to Howard Webb, who's fighting for us at the club. No spokesman, no board, no responsibility, no accountability. Yeah, there is. I think, you know what? I've said this. There was a Philip Leclerc done a bit last week, didn't he? On a podcast, and he mentioned in the podcast that Everton fans were mourning the death of their football club before it even died. And you know, I think I know some people looked at it and thought, well, what's he saying that for? But a lot of people do feel like that, don't they? A lot of people feel absolutely lost. You know, absolutely too many. There's just too much going on. Footy's not brilliant at the moment. Not winning games. You've got this hanging over us. We're now in the bottom three. People feel like it's such a weight, and it's a weight that we can't. You know, you just can't get away from. So that's true, isn't it? You know, people. When things are on top of you, it's very hard to find an easy way out. And maybe I know a few people who aren't particularly happy with the way Everton fans protesting. I know a few people who are a little bit like, why are we protesting when we've caused this ourselves? But I feel like they're missing the point. I feel like fans, and certainly Everton fans, need somebody to protest against. They need
an enemy.
They need an enemy, and this was said when this all happened. This will help Everton. They need an enemy. When we had the board there, it was easy. You just point your anger at them, but that's not there now. So people do need a way to fight back an anger, whether it's flags or cards or whatever. And it mightn't be 100% true. You know, the club have got a lot to say on this. But at the moment, we feel like, well, if at least they were fighting that one thing, the Premier League, that brings us all together. But it'd be nice if it almost felt like the club were... I know the club behind the scenes are helping with certain things, but it'd be... Again, you go back to, if Everton had someone who come out and spoke on behalf of us, that would really galvanise the fan base.
It would, and this is when why you need friends in the media as well. And
no, we've got no friends in the media.
That's unfortunate. And there's good writers and good journalists who have had their say in it and have been very much on the side of Henry Winter's been brilliant about the second charge, for example. But there's only so much he does, and there's only so much he will do, and his audience is only so much. And the issue with any national paper is going to be that you can have one journalist one day in the saying one thing, and then in the same paper the next day, which is fair enough. It's how it works. There's going to be another journalist saying another thing, and that's just the way it is. you mentioned there about, mourning something that's gone. That's what I've referenced it earlier on the final word.
Yeah.
Like the flatness around Goodison.
Yeah.
It's why I think away games at the minute are almost just really what we need and want, because we can get away from that. I'm going to use the term like toxicity, and it's not that Goodison is toxic or the fan base is toxic. It's just that there's so much pressure there. There's so much. It feels like the weight of the world is on everyone's shoulders when you turn to Goodison, like even for an FA Cup game, and it shouldn't be like that. There's just no excitement.
No.
And this is where, speaking about Dyche of the year in, like, because of the type of football it is, that it's effective, but it's very basic, it's very bare bones. If it's not winning football, it's very dull, then that's not going to help anything. But it does feel like we need someone there and saying, kind of standing up for the club. Now, the hope is that they have done it a bit in the statement. Like the statement for the second charge, I think, is the best thing the club has done in a while in terms of they clearly thought it through in advance. They knew it was coming, and it's like it was a strong statement.
Yeah,
it made it clear that they were unhappy with the whole process, but at the same time, there's only so much they can say in that, and it just feels like it has to be someone. I think again, your brilliant interview last week with Burnham, but it has to be someone that's somehow connected to the club, but not in a way that can be linked indefinitely to the club. And that's why it would just be someone like, an ex-player that goes on Gary Neville's Overlap podcast, or just someone who's informed about the situation. I'd love it, I'd love to do it as a journalist, but I'd love it to be a national journalist who actually is not necessarily on Everton's side, but he's presenting a bit more of a balanced picture overall. Like, it's Sunday Supplement. I grew up watching that. It's what made me want to get into journalism. That doesn't, unfortunately, it's not there anymore. But every week he'd have different opinions around the table, and Sky, that doesn't happen anymore. But this would have been a major talking point. Instead, now it's all on Twitter, but it's all on, it might be the Athletics podcast, and they might have one journalist on who, let's say Paddy might do an Everton special, Paddy Boyland, and he'll, say it as he sees it and the facts of the case. From an Everton perspective as well, he'll report. But then the next day they'll have someone on who's like Matt Slater, who's kind of says, well, 105 million's loads to lose over.
You know what? That's a really good point, because I'll tell you why, right? Because if you're going to have Paddy Boyland on, right, you've got to have Matt Slater on with him.
Yeah, which they did do, I think, once, but then they did it, or they've done it like separately as well. Like, it's been more of a financial one, so they get Matt on to discuss lots of topics.
But that's it, isn't it? This is what we don't have enough of in the media as a whole, is we don't have the counterpoints. We don't have two people who are coming in from, and this might be society as a whole, by the way. We don't have two people coming in from different ends of the spectrum, saying, Paddy could go on there going, this is the reason Everton feel hard done by. This happened and that happened, and you might have another person who comes in and says, no, that's nonsense, and I'll tell you why. In fact, I seen a guy earlier on. I can't remember his Twitter name, but he used to work for Manchester City, and he's been raising his profile using this. And he RT'd, I think, one of Julia's things, going, Everton fans again are getting brainwashed by this. It's all misinformation. So I tell you what, someone get him on a show with somebody who knows all the stuff about Everton, and get them on a show together, and let them have an argument, and let's use right. And let them have rather than this sniping at each other from one end to the other. It doesn't work. Like you just said, Sunday Supplement, you should all sit around the table and have different points of view. And they maybe agree to disagree in the end, but at least in one show you'd get some kind of balanced argument. Whereas now we don't get that anymore.
No. And there is, and it's hard, and because it's such a convoluted case as well, and the report's written in such a way that it can be confusing. It's hard to know all the facts. I definitely still don't. Like you read it one day, and then you read it the next day, and it seems totally different. Like you've got to guess what they're inferring almost, but. There is so much of that. Like that person you referred to, I believe he went on a national radio station, talks about sport, but he was on with Simon Jordan, who they were in the case of the Man City one. This person was saying, well, he didn't actually think he thinks Man City will be fine, which fair enough. Like at the minute, I suppose innocent until unproven guilty. And he started like reeling off why they'd be fine, and then Simon Jordan disagreed. But that's fine. It was like a civil debate. He just disagreed based on like their thoughts. That's fine. It does feel like Everton, and Jamie Carragher said it on the Overlap, doesn't almost have someone sticking up for them at the minute, in the sense of not going, defending them, just being put across.
That's a good point. Like Gary Neville, I've got a lot of time, a lot of respect for him. But if you're going to talk about Everton, get someone from Everton in the room then. Yeah. Don't use Jamie Carragher as the person sticking up for Everton, because Evertonians are just going to go, this fella doesn't represent us. Surely, as one of the hot topics of the time, get people on who know what they're talking about rather than someone who just go, oh, I feel bad for them. Right, we've got Eddie, because I know he's been waiting for a while. I think he's in California, if it's the same Eddie.
Texas.
Are you in Texas?
Yeah, dude.
I thought you were in California.
No, I've always been in Texas, remember? You brought up the Civil War movie.
The Yorkshire of the States.
I don't believe you. I think you're lying. No, I'm only messing. How are you, mate?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Thank you, mate.
The last time you were on, hadn't you just travelled to watch your team play?
Yeah, in Orlando, yeah.
See, that's where the confusion comes from.
Yeah,
you got
away with that. To be fair, all my teams are pretty bad right now, so it's just negativity across everything on social media for me.
Good times, Eddie. Good times.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to bring up. Actually, I was like, I understand why people might be mad at our players, but I feel everyone's just incredibly mean. I understand they're not playing the best and it's not the best football.
Yeah.
But they just write him off completely, and I think that's kind of unjust.
Yeah.
I you can have a bad game or you might be in a drought like Dom, but the comments you're making aren't about his football anymore, and I just don't see the point of that.
No, I agree with you. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've said some bad things.
Well, you're positive now.
I'm trying to be.
Your reviews.
Yeah,
are better.
I'm trying to. I'll be honest. I am trying to be more careful of what I've been more wary. And to be honest, I'll admit to you, Eddie, and I'll be admitting to the world when I say this. A lot of my anger didn't come from a place of the football players. It was more the football club. And to be fair, I was taking it out on the players, if I'm honest. And I'm a lot more. What's weird is I'm a lot more calmer about the football club now because of obviously people have left the football club. So I was very angry, very, very angry. And I took that out on a lot of the players. But I do agree, I don't get this. You can go on my social media and I very rarely sort of criticise. Well, if I criticise a player, I criticise them as a football player. I very rarely will. This thing of atting people and saying you're this and you're that and the other. What? I'll never understand that. I'll never understand why you feel like you have to do that or you have to. Because would you do it in the street?
No.
You wouldn't do it in the street. You wouldn't go to someone. You wouldn't say it. And you know, I get frustrated with players. We all do. We all go, oh yeah, that's terrible. I think we're all. Don't get me wrong. I think you are still allowed to say so and so had a bad game.
Job, but the work in an industry, especially Toffee TV and my industry as well. You're allowed to have an opinion now. Jesus Christ! If I tried to play Michael Keane at football, he'd wipe the floor with me.
Of course he would. But that's not the level we're looking at.
Well, true. But I think this bunch of Everton players are likeable as a bunch of people. They all seem like honest lads. They all seem like hard workers, and you got to credit Dyche for that as well. But even under Lampard as well, I don't think anyone seemed like a bad person. It's like why you hate Morpay getting the stupid abuse he did and things like that. It's just idiots. But you can separate that between then kind of being critical of them as players or their performances. Yeah. As long as it doesn't go overboard.
Go on, Ed.
Yeah. The wildest thing for me is Onana. Everyone just wants him out of the club. Yeah. And I'm like, he's literally probably our best midfielder.
Went missing last night though, didn't he?
Exactly.
Do you know what I think it is with Onana? Right, because I was having a conversation with my missus last night about this. Now my missus goes season ticket holder, been going for years. But she doesn't. She will admit she's not doesn't fully not understand football. But she's not she's not into the intricacies like we are. And so she was like, I don't get Onana. This is what she said. She said, I don't get him. She said he just seems to do nothing. And I went, I said to her, the only way I can explain it to you is he is very much a modern footballer. If you look at his stats, they're really good.
Consistent.
They're consistent, and he does a job. I said, but you come from an era where football, and I think a lot of us still look at football like this. They do. There's the dynamic. They do all kinds. I said, what his job is to do is sit in front of the back four, get the ball, and just give it to other people. Yeah, that's his job. I said he's a very modern footballer, and I said I get old school football fans don't appreciate what he does, and at times he does frustrate me. I want him to do more because I think he will do more, and when he moves to a club,
he's got the ability to.
You'll see that more come because there'll be players around him. But I said to her, like, don't get me wrong, you're not wrong. I said, but he is very much the definition of a very modern footballer.
Just not to interrupt her, just very quickly. I think it's the Onana James Garner debate. Like, I like both players. I think Onana's a much better player.
Oh, much better.
But James Garner is liked by certain fans because what Garner is very good at is being busy. He's always busy, and I don't mean that in a negative sense. No. He gets around the pitch. He's like 100% full throttle, whereas Onana isn't, and sometimes that's frustrating.
Yeah.
But when you look at what they both offer, it's why they work well together in tandem as well, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's the biggest thing for me. I just don't get the hate because it's not just Everton, because like my other sports teams, like they're all shitting on the. Yeah, I'm like,
come on,
reel them off,
Eddie. Who are your other sports teams? Go on.
I'm a Steelers fan for NFL.
Yeah.
I went to the University of Iowa, so I'm an Iowa fan for college sports.
Okay.
I'm a.
Did they have some kind of nickname with something to do with corn?
No, we're called the Hawkeyes.
Oh, okay.
Because it's an imaginary bird. But yeah, and then I'm a Chicago Bulls fan and an Atlanta Braves fan.
Chicago Bulls is literally got to be like the biggest downturn in any sports franchise ever, isn't it? Like Michael Jordan leaves, that's it. Like you're dead. Like you are dead.
Yeah, we had Derrick Rose, and then he tore both his knees, so then he couldn't play. And then we just haven't been good. We've been trying to trade one player for like the last 3 months, but his trade value is so low that like they're gonna offer us like a second round pick, which is practically like the equivalent of just giving us like 500K, like $1 million. And that's about it for like our technically our franchise player. So
is it DeRozan, DeMar DeRozan, or is he quite good? I do cover a bit of the NBA.
He's still decent. Zach LaVine's the one we're trying to trade.
Oh right.
Well, we're trying to trade the whole team, but I don't know.
Do you have you got a baseball team?
Yeah, the Atlanta Braves.
The Braves, sorry, yeah.
Okay.
They're actually good until the playoffs, but
they won it 2 years ago, didn't they?
They're actually good.
Oh,
that's the only team that gives me hope.
Yeah. Astro's a big Atlanta Braves fan as well, so he does keep me updated. And then my other friend Derek, he's a big Kansas City fan. So
American sports aren't real though. So.
No, I mean, American sports are just fantasy, isn't it? So I watched the Super Bowl for the adverts. Yeah. So
the halftime show.
Oh, no. Taylor Swift's gonna might make it to the Super Bowl.
I don't care. I'm going to see her live. She can be there. She doesn't have to be there. As long as she's in Liverpool in June, that's all I care about. I'll be honest with you. Like if I find out she's done a knee ligaments in because she went to Super Bowl. She's been ruled out.
Warmed up.
She's been ruled out of her own. She's been ruled out. You're just gonna have to have Paramore, and that's it.
That's not worth going to Anfield for.
No, I'm not going to Anfield to Paramore. Yeah, I want the main thing. Do you know what I mean? What if she gets injured at the Super Bowl and then I turn up at Anfield and it's like, oh yeah, she's been replaced by Andre Gomez.
We've had to go to a back three.
Yeah, we're like, Ben Godfrey's playing instead of we've brought Ben Godfrey. Imagine Michael Keane comes out on stage. I was like, no, not again. Oh, there you go.
God.
There you go.
I reckon you might. I mean, imagine if you might get something Klopp related there. They might even try and build it all into that.
Yeah. Oh, imagine. She better not come out and go. The place is not the same.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Shut up.
Oh, mate. Yeah, no, yeah. People need to I think you can still criticize. You can still look at people. The day that we can't question a player's performance is the day any sport is dead, because TV will be dead, especially in America. My God, you have channels just to give a grief to people or have opinions. A lot of people will be out of work, so you should still have that. Sportsmen, any professional sportsmen or women should still be able to take criticism, as long as that criticism doesn't get personal. The minute it gets personal, then it's nonsense. The minute you start valuing someone by whatever else is happening in their life or whatever else, is absolute nonsense. But I still think we can have our opinion on a person, and that's it. And as long as it doesn't go past that, then I think that's fine.
Yeah, no, I agree, because I don't think Everton's played well, but the players we haven't created anything, but that's I think a system flaw right now. We don't have Decore, and that's
and that's it. And we can still debate as well. There's too much of this, if you talk, say, something about Sean Dyche. Oh, so you want him sacked now? It's no, I'm just pointing out a flaw.
It'd be nice if he made some.
I'm pointing out a flaw the same way that when we do well, I can go, I did really well there. Yeah. We've lost that ability in society to everything seems to just be black and white.
It's social media age, I'm on social media a lot, but it's and we all are. But it's the reflection of society as a whole. That's all it is. Everything's a microcosm of it, and the football thing's one thing, and also the overhype of certain players as well.
Yeah.
And, and young players, and I think you see it even. I'm not massive. I'm not massively into it, anything like that. But you see it on games like FIFA or something like that, where you'll have a young player who's suddenly the best rated player on the game because he's had 2 good games or something. It all builds into that, and it's all about hype and the product, and then people just buy into it, and they feel because it's a product, people forget that there's a human aspect to it, and they forget do it as a product,
and then they forget there's pressure on that person. Then you end up situations with, say, Marcus Rashford at the moment, where clearly he's not going through a good stage of his life for whatever reason, whether it's football, whether it's not football. And then people double down on that and are asking, why has this happened? And it's a disgrace. And then you have managers who go way over the top on disciplining them and all this, instead of finding out what the root cause is. And everything just seems to be from one extreme to the other. Without Van Dyche. Van Dyche. Someone mentioned something about Van Dyche maybe leaving Liverpool. Next minute, the media are going mad, and then he comes out and clarifies it, and then people will be like, oh, well, shouldn't have been out in the first place. It's no one. These people can never win, can they? And then when
leaving,
it's tough. Right, nice one, Eddie, for your call. Anyway, anything more to add to it?
Nah, that was it.
Top man. Is it warm in Texas? Let me ask you that. Is it warm in Texas right now?
Yeah, it's back to normal weather. It's in the 70s.
I don't know what that means. You don't know what that means. You have this weird calculation.
About 20.
Okay.
Whereabouts in Texas are you, Ed?
I'm in San Antonio, Austin.
Oh,
area.
right, okay.
Oh, nice.
So I'm in the south of Texas. The north's a little colder, but it's fine.
It's fine.
Let's see what's it in Celsius. It's 21 degrees.
There you go, 21 degrees. Thank you, finally. Thank you for giving it to us.
Ned offering the facts. So.
Ned knows the difference, because when we went to America, he had to adjust. Right, Eddie, nice one, mate. Thanks for the call.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.
Nice one, mate. Bye.
There you go. Top man, Eddie. There you go. Yeah, interesting. Baz is having a day off, apparently. He's just having, have we got another caller?
Last caller.
Who is he? Rich. So, do you know how to spell Rich?
Rich.
Did you know how to? He spelled Rich with a V, which is very interesting. Unless he's from Bulgaria. Well, he might be from Bulgaria or something. Go, hello everybody, me Rich. Spelled with V. Go on, Rich.
Hello.
Go on, mate.
Hello. Yeah. No, I'm calling from Barnsley, actually.
There you go, Rich.
There we go. One of my.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you the other week after the game.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, after our 1-0 hammering of Crystal Palace.
There you go.
Yeah.
I hadn't forgot. See, I hadn't forgot.
Hey. Yeah. Well, I'm still waiting for the for the Premier night.
Oh, we'll get that sorted. Don't worry.
Yeah. So I don't really know what I want to say, to be honest.
Well, I mean, just a grown man confused about why he picked up a phone. That's me. That's me every time I answer the phone. Why did I answer the phone? Why didn't I wait? See who it was. Find them on WhatsApp and see who they are, because that's how bad we are have become as human beings. Is that we can't even answer the phone.
I don't even have to go as far as answering the phone. I just wake up in the morning and it's confusion from the beginning.
That's it, Rich.
But I mean, just sort of reflecting a bit on the last 24 hours, and I've got a Twitter account that I've had for a couple of years. I've hardly used, but yesterday I probably posted about 50 posts with all the crap that was coming out in the papers and Premier League and everything else. So I've been on to the woman from the Culture Media Sport Committee.
Okay.
Been on to Andy Burnham. Been on to Gary Lineker.
Are you offering yourself up to be Everton spokesman here, Rich?
Well, I mean, nobody else is doing it, so why not?
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I know. Have you had any replies?
I've had absolutely nothing.
God, that's the problem with these big celebrities and big people with big accounts. They never reply to you. They don't care about us little people, do they?
No, they don't. But no, I'll keep plugging away though. But I mean, it was just. I couldn't really believe my eyes. I mean, I saw there was a thing came out, I think, from the Telegraph. I presume from one of the Premier Leagues. What do we call them? Pet journalists, is it? Something like that.
Oh, client journalists.
Client journalists. Yeah, one of the client journalists. I presume he is anyway. Because I mean, it was just it was Everton. We've been telling Everton for months about spending all the money on players and all of this crap. And I was kind of reading this and I was thinking, I can't believe a journalist, apparently professional, serious journalist, is kind of just writing this stuff.
Yeah.
Clearly hasn't checked anything out. Clearly isn't interested in checking anything out. I mean, papers used to have people, I thought, called fact checkers.
Yeah.
But they don't seem to have that anymore. They just kind of print whatever they're told from somewhere.
Well,
I presume maybe they get, a nice, something or other, meal out or whatever, holiday somewhere. I don't know what.
Well, there's not that much money splashing about in journalism, Rich, unfortunately.
Well, no. So I mean, maybe a weekend in Little Dicky Master's caravan somewhere.
I think they get to keep their job. I think that's what it is. I think it's a simple case of we have people who would just copy and paste people now. That's all it is. We're in an era of journalism where, because loads of it's online, that a lot of it is just copy and pasting other people, what people have sent you, and not having an opinion and putting it out as like fact. We see this a lot in politics as well, where people just put stuff out as fact, and that's it. So then when you're watching the news, you watch a piece and you're like, no, there's no one going to argue the toss on this.
Well, that's the thing with the frustration with the Times article. I don't know if you saw that, Rich, but that Paul Joyce and Martin Ziegler yesterday, and essentially, there's been a lot of talk about the Premier League briefing, but from my understanding, it's not necessarily a briefing. They just when they sent the letter back to Mark Harney and the people who wrote the letter. The Premier League didn't publish it publicly, but what they do is, and they've done this with their replies to Andy Burnham as well. They just essentially also sent on a copy of the letter to the newspapers. Now, from my understanding, there's not really an instruction to do anything with that, but the newspapers and these reporters in question will probably take the line of, well, the Premier League have given this to us. We want to keep getting more from the Premier League. All they're really doing is writing what the letter said. Yeah. They're not providing an opinion on it. Like, it would have been nice if at the bottom of that Martin Ziegler and Paul Joyce article that both of them would have provided an opinion. Whether that would have been against Everton or for Everton, or somewhere in the middle, it would have been nice. But instead, it's just essentially all it is reported speech. That is all it is. It's not even direct quotes. It's the letter said this, and that's where the frustration lies. At least for me, I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think that this, this is part of the problem, isn't it? You're not getting. I mean, you look at the post office thing, and that took I mean, that has been reported in different places for a long time, but it kind of took a drama, really, to kind of propel it into the public eye in a way that hadn't been there before. I mean, so where have the journalists been on that?
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, that's a story,
and they don't jump on until there's a story now.
That's it. That's a story that I was not shocked by, because I've actually been following that, because it's an interest to me, because I was actually, on a personal level, I looked at that and I was really interested in that story, But that's the other thing, isn't it? News can be buried, news can be put wherever it wants. Yeah. We see a lot of this stuff now where it's like, especially in politics, where people who worked in Fleet Street were working suddenly for prime ministers, and it's like, well, stories go missing. And I'm sure football now, with the value it has, Richard Masters can pick up the phone and go, I've got a good little story for you here, and they'll print it. And you're right, there's no opinions, because the opinions are, or do you know what it might even be? That there's so many opinions now and there's so many stories. There's a story every day. Sometimes I feel like the stories created we see it in politics, and I think football is just following politics' lead, is that stories are created and are pushed of huge substance that really have no substance to them. And we see this in politics all the time. Every time there's something that's actually important, a faux story is created, and suddenly that's the story in the headlines, and it takes the place of the story. We're seeing that in football, I think, as well. I think we're seeing a lot of stories being created to overshadow what is actually important. And sadly, because the Premier League are in charge of all this, they can put out whatever story they want, and journalists will eat it up.
Yeah, there's a lot of deflection that's going on, and the whole Everton thing is partly about deflection for the Premier League.
Yeah, of course it is.
I think you said it earlier. Everton are a soft target, and we're a soft target because of the way the club has been run. Yeah, it's the club's fault that they're a soft target, but that's what they are, and that's why we've been picked on. And so we're being used to deflect from other issues that the Premier League has, and there's because there's no kind of opinion, because there's no proper evaluation, because there's no proper investigation by journalists of what the Premier League is or isn't doing, or isn't happening around them. They get away with it, whereas if there was some kind of proper investigation, some sort of proper spotlight put on them, I think people would be quite shocked. Because I mean, we use the word corrupt, but people, I think, oh, that's just football fans being a bit emotional or just throwing around the word. They are corrupt. And then there's different kinds of corruption. And they're corrupt in a few different ways. One way, like putting misinformation out there. That's a kind of corruption. Using a club or using a process for a reason, other than what it was supposed to be used for. That's the kind of corruption.
But we are a deflection. We're talking about people deflecting from us, but we're a great story to deflect from, like, say, Manchester City. Even though that drags Manchester City into it, we are a really good story, or we're a good story to show. I mean, we all know this, but we're a good story to show that the Premier League is doing its job and therefore doesn't need a independent body looking at it, a watchdog looking at it. We are they've created a story to stop people asking the question. It's no coincidence that on both times that we've been charged, that the Premier League were facing a Commons Commission that week. That has happened twice. That is not a coincidence. That is so they can take a piece of paper and say, see, we showed you. We can look after our own house. We are the distraction. And there is no even keel with football. We see that all the time. We see it last night. A very clear instance in the game where we all think it's handball. That if it happens tonight, if it happens with Liverpool versus Chelsea, and it's actually Liverpool who are denied the penalty, that is a story that has ran for days. That is, again, the media being manipulated, and because there is no evenness in the Premier League. Other clubs are bigger than the bigger stories, and when Richard Masters says they're a small club, they prove that all the time by going, you are smaller because we don't actually care and the media don't care, and therefore what are you? Well, you've got no leg to stand on, really.
I think this is the thing, that the DCMS letter to Richard Masters is a huge story, or it should be a huge story. Like, it has genuinely called into question, in a way, the integrity, because they are. Andy Burnham said it, didn't he? That he came dangerously close to misleading in Andy Burnham's opinion, that Masters came dangerously close to misleading the panel. Yeah. And then 2 days later, that is literally what the letter suggests, that they are saying, you better provide some evidence because we don't think you're telling the truth and we're not happy with it. But that came on the same day, unfortunately, that Jurgen Klopp announced his departure from Liverpool, and it's like, the media don't have to focus on it. And look, I'm part of the media, and I know how these things work. Like, I worked for a company that a few years ago we used to do match reports for every Premier League teams, and then because of a shortage of staff as well, we had to change to doing it we only reported on 6 teams. But obviously we did wider news stories and anything that had happened related to the other teams, but we weren't doing the same in-depth coverage because, to be frank, the attention, the draw just isn't there. Yeah. And as an Evertonian, it's frustrating because you're one of those 14 that the draw isn't there for, and you want to cover, and that's why blogs and things like they're more than a game, but things like The Athletic and stuff can be successful in that niche. But
it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? If you don't talk about a football team, there's no interest in a football team.
And it becomes more and more, and then the football team can't grow, and if the football team can't grow, it can't be successful, but then it can't be successful unless it grows, and you just kind of get into this cycle then. Unfortunately, that's where we are. Yeah,
it is. And, and I think what you said before, is exactly right. We need somebody who's going to speak up for the club. And I think whether that is somebody who's actually put out there by the club, or somebody like, what about Big Nev? Somebody of his kind of, he can be loud when he wants to be, Nev, and I
think the issue is and I don't mean this disrespectfully at all, but I think we need someone.
Yeah, we need someone big. Well, also I'll upset a few people here. The 85 team went very, very quiet when it came to what happened with the board and what happened last year. So to suddenly I personally am not someone who would suddenly be asking them to stand up for us, because they all went very, very dark when it was their mate sitting on the board and no one wanted to ruffle any feathers. So I might upset a few people by saying that, but I'm not looking for them. And Patrick is right. I think from our point of view, those people we hold them in huge esteem. They're not known, those people. The 85 team could walk past most people in the street who weren't Evertonians and they wouldn't know who they were, sadly. We live in a modern era where someone like Micah Richards, who didn't win a tap as a footballer, bar being on the bench at Manchester City in the early days, don't get me wrong, he's great. He's a great personality, and he's got a decent understanding of the game. But he didn't really win anything. He doesn't when he sits around and he's with other people who won all these trophies. He's someone his opinion is seen as being huge in the game now, because he's only just left the game. But and that's because that's what society's like now. They don't, if you to take a Premier League player from 10, 15 years ago, most people don't want those people on them unless they really, really won lots of trophies. And that's where we are. We want the immediacy, don't we? We're putting people on TV who are literally just at the very end of their careers, and that's where we are. So we need someone and don't get me wrong, this is a really hard balancing act, because you've got Everton players who are trying to get into the media, ex-Everton players, but also don't want to upset the apple cart. Connor Cody would be perfect, but unfortunately he's playing for Leicester. But he'd be a perfect spokesman for Everton.
And I think which is the thing he came through as a Red and everything. And also, to me, and maybe I'm putting my journalistic hat on here, I sometimes think it needs to be someone from that realm as well. But it's so, the old school journalism, and now there's a bit of a mix. You've got, because of the regrowth almost of fanzines in the thing of like The Athletic, which is done in a professional way. You've got journalists who have a patch, and that's their patch within an organisation. You've got journalists like Joe Thomas, who obviously work for local news. But then you've got I think Joe could do it if they got asked to go on the. If Joe got asked, he'd do a very good job of explaining the situation, and he's got a name and to back it up, and he's got the local following behind him. But maybe from a national perspective, I think like someone like Mark Chapman did such a good job on the podcast. And whenever I hear of him now on the radio discussing the situation, it's not that he understands it. He actually understands it. It's not that he'll ask questions of both sides. Like on the 5 Live a few weeks ago, there was Julia on and there was Rory Smith on, and like Mark Chapman was playing that perfect role. But that's the issue. We've got like Gary Lineker, but he can't do it because he's. He heads up match of the day coverage. He can't. He's got to be in.
No, well, it's interesting because Radio 5 now have Julia on. I mean, she literally robbed my gig. That was my gig, but I let it off because she knows what she's talking about. She works for the club and she works for the Mesa. But Julia goes on there and knows exactly what she's talking about, and Mark allows her the time because whereas other radio stations step all over you because all they're interested in is if you go on a certain radio station, national radio station, they don't allow you to have your say. They just want to destroy what you're trying to say. So that's the other side of it. It's very, very difficult. Media is mad at the moment. You put Sky on at like 12 o'clock in the afternoon and you get 4 people who are basically YouTubers, which I have no issue with as a YouTuber, but that's where the landscape is right now. That is where the landscape is right now. So it's very difficult. We do need that spokesman, but you throw a name out and you're just like
and then what again? I'll put my journal. What maybe football fans in general, and it is hard not to. Is like you've got to maybe. Journalists get a lot of flack, and they do for sometimes just reporting a story. And it's a journalist who you might actually want on your side. Yeah, we can be bitter, just like anyone else, I guess. And like if people are going to start sending, let's just random the fucking name out that David Hornstein, because he reports something that we don't like. You've got to. He's reporting it, and fine, you can question it maybe, but if you go and then abuse, or I'm not saying you would, Rich, but people will do. Then like, why would he a week later report something that's in Everton's favour? Like, why would it? I mean, I'm not. These are people as well. Like, and it happens on a smaller scale, it happens on a bigger scale. So you've got to play the game. Really, essentially, it's like you've got to, you've got to have friends. And
the one thing we have to all do is, from our point of view, Rich, is if these people are out there, is try and get them on our shows. And try and get that opinion on our shows, and then show them the other side of it, and try and have a chat. And I know Baz has spoken. He's spoken to Ornstein in DMs and stuff, and he's spoken to the likes of Carragher, and people might go, "Oh, you're talking to them for?" But you're right. You have to be able to talk to them and go, "Listen, you're saying something which we don't agree with, and we're just giving you our side." And if that's the only, you can try and get them on a show, we've got whoever it is, and try and get that out there, then that's the first good step, isn't it? So the next time they go on a show, they can go, "Well, I actually have spoken to some people at Everton and who've got knowledgeable, and actually they've made me aware of this or made me aware of that." So instead of like all of us as a fan base just giving abuse to people, that's never going to help. You've got to educate these people like you have to in any because ultimately these journalists and these ex-footballers, certainly the ex-footballers from my experience, have such a, because they're covering so many different things at once, they have such a shallow knowledge of anything.
And the issue with a lot of national journalists, and they are still very smarmy about it, and they like to think they know everything, and I've had this conversation with people who work with the club and cover the club as well in a lot more detail than I do. And, there's been articles published that these people who are also journalists are just like baffled by, because it's like they don't know what they're on about, but they have the audience. Again, and then it's out in the public realm, and then it's how do you change that? But Everton as a club haven't really been switched on enough to it as well, and keeping up with the times. In that regard.
Everton don't use people like us. It's as simple as that. They don't use it. They don't give us the opportunity to have interviews with players or managers or people at the club to get that message out either. So it's on Everton. If Everton can't be the voice, then let people like us and other podcasts be the voice, and share your players and your manager and the coaches with us. But Rich, thanks for giving us a call, mate. Good call for someone who didn't. For someone who didn't have anything to say, you said a lot, mate. Nice one.
Well, I can babble if you want me to.
No, nice that's one, good. Cheers, mate. See you later, Rich. I've just seen a good one there from Emma in the comments saying, where is it? Not showing protests or banners, muting the crowd noise, recording interviews with Andy Burnham and ourselves, they're not showing them. So she's clearly saying everything we need, that's been going on. Right, great show. Good calls, good comments. Thanks for, I know I haven't read loads out, but I am looking at them and getting your points of view. So big thanks to Patrick for coming over.
You.
He should have been here tomorrow. Baz doesn't know the date of transfer deadline day. So neither does Patrick. These are supposed to be the educated minds in the room. Ned claims he knew it was Thursday. I don't believe that. Ned didn't even know what the score was at the final whistle last night. So there you go. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. It is deadline day. Who knows what's going to happen, but we'll be here live from 1. See you later.